Okay, folks, good evening and welcome to our second class. So today we're going to look at the performance management process. Remember, last week we touched on some strategic issues. Before you go on your text, right? Because the notes actually complement the text, you see. So when is it going to come? Wow. Yeah. So one of the key things you need to remember, folks, is that we mentioned about the strategic relationship, and that performance management is not a function on its own. Right? It actually supports broader HR functions and activities. So remember the strategic relevance that you have a business environment that can be competitive, whether public sector, private sector, and the organization will have its strategic goals, has its vision, it has its mission, and it has its culture, has its norms. And what HR has to do, HR would also have its own strategic objectives or departmental objectives. So HR now needs to make sure that performance management is aligned to all of these things. So that strategic relationship is something you really need to be mindful of. So in other words, performance management supports the HR goals and strategies. It supports the goals and strategies of each functional department, whether finance, whether marketing, whether production, good evening. And it linked back to the organization, as I said, vision, the mission, and all of those goals that pertain to the organization. So last week, we also looked at the differences between performance management and performance appraisal. So we know performance management is what? How does performance management differ from performance appraisal? Right, it's a continuous, ongoing process of feedback in performance management, whereas performance appraisal, yeah, no problem, thank you. Yeah, performance appraisal is the one-off, whether every 6 months or whether at the end of every year. So one is a definitive feedback session once that is recorded and documented, whereas performance management is this ongoing performance feedback, and could include part of a performance management system. You could have appraisal as one of those dimensions of a performance management system. We also talked about the 3 levels of performance management, which is at the level of the employee, the level of the manager, and the level of the organization, right? So those 3 levels would relate to the kind of contribution that is made to performance management. So these employees have their own responsibilities on the performance management. Managers or leaders have their responsibilities on the organizational level, the broader strategic responsibilities. So these 3 levels are 3 levels that you should know by next week when I test you. And so we looked at the types of rewards. In other words, part of a performance management system, which is linked to the appraisal, is that when people meet targets or exceed targets, I exceed my target, what's in it for me? So it's basic, I think, logic that if I have a team of 10 workers and 5 are excelling, exceeding their targets by far, but at the end of the year, they get the same benefits as the 5 that are not even meeting their standards. What's the likely outcome if that happens? What is going to happen? Lack of motivation. It could impact on productivity. It could impact on morale. So it can impact on a number of things. So hence, we need to have a system that says, if somebody performs better than the others in a performance management system, they should be rewarded and recognized accordingly. But in a lot of organizations, it doesn't happen. So the people who perform well and those who don't perform well get the same thing. And it happens a lot, not only in the public sector, but in the private sector. So what's the incentive for me to excel? What's the incentive for me to go beyond the call when at the end of the year, the people who don't come to work properly And the people who don't treat the customers properly or have a lot of errors in their work will get the same thing I get. Okay? So that's what performance management is about. It's about looking at ways of rewarding and recognizing people. And one of the tools, as we said, when we start to link it to motivational theories, one of the theories we would look at is that of expectancy theory. And in expectancy theory, it looks at the importance or the worth of rewards, but we'll touch on that later down in the semester. And the final two things we looked at the 6 purposes of performance management, which you should know, and we also identified 15 ideal characteristics that you should spend some time on your own looking at. And we have them highlighted in the notes, and everybody should, well, by tonight, everybody should have copies of the notes. I hope you're able to get the text. I will check the office and find out what is happening there. Now, how are we going to organize this evening session? We're going to look at the performance management process, which is just, it's not difficult. It's just telling you what the steps in the process are. But what we want to do then is to go to a couple of videos that I want you to see, and also I want to spend time also looking at your coursework, right? We're going to look at your coursework assignments, the projects that you have to do, and also the cases to present. I uploaded everything. So in the latter part of this evening, we're actually going to look at your projects, what you have to do, and then we will look at the cases you have to do for the case presentations. Right, and out of the videos we'll look at different aspects of performance management, and we have some interactive discussions about them, and then talk about your own experiences with performance management systems. Tell us about the system where you work, and where their strengths and weaknesses, if any exist, and why they do not exist. And then what I'm going to be doing, I'm doing it for all of my master's classes, recording, so I'm actually recording the sessions. I'm going to record the sessions and upload the e-learning, that if you want to go back, you could actually go back and listen to the lectures. So this is what we're going to look at: some prerequisites, performance planning, performance execution, performance assessment, performance review, performance renewal and contracting, which means that at the end of the performance cycle, you keep some people, or other people might say, listen, no, I don't think you are working out in our organization. So these are the key steps in the process. And this is the essence of what we'll deal with. Maybe the first hour we can deal with this process and showing some videos at the end of it. So the first one deals with prerequisites. And all it is talking about knowledge of the organization's mission and strategic goals. And remember, that's why I started the session by saying that performance management cannot be seen in isolation. It has a context. And the context is, as an HR function, performance management supports the wider organization's mission. I will even add vision here. It supports the vision, the mission. So that's the strategic relevance that we're talking about. And that's where you talk about the strategic goals, the strategic planning, and where the organization is going. So this just reinforces my opening comment that we need to be mindful of the strategic relevance. And I want to restate that a number of your questions in the exam will be in the context of the strategic level and the strategic relevance of some aspect of performance management. Right? So these are things you will know: the organization's goals, its strategies, etc. So the example could be, suppose an organization implemented a strategy that it wanted to increase sales by 20% in the current business cycle. Right? It has a goal of increasing sales by 20% in the current business cycle. What are the implications, for performance management? What's your name again?
Jaleesa.
Yes, Jaleesa. What are the implications for performance management?
If they want to increase sales, they want to increase
by 20%. They're going to increase what?
productivity.
Right. But before that, what is the relevance for performance management?
So you're going to train people.
You got to train people, yes. But there's some. So, but let's stick with the training. So you say you're gonna train them based on what?
Your final you would train them based on your outcomes.
But how you know what to train them in, Karina? Sorry? But how you know how to train them? Or what to train them in? The strategic plan?
Like, you use your strategic plan or vision or whatever.
But you see how it started?
Yeah, increase profit.
You got, what did they say? The company wants to increase sales by 20%. You're looking at the strategic plan. The strategic plan could have about 6 key goals. I'm talking about just sales, increasing up 20%. Sorry?
So you want to know what?
No, I'm saying you're going back. A strategic plan has a whole set of goals. We're just looking at one goal that looks at increasing sales by 20%. So I'm saying, if the company wants to increase sales by 20%, what are the implications for performance management? He said training. Yes,
So
sir.
I guess some kind of incentive to work towards that.
You're warm.
First
Yes.
of all, the company has to increase demand in their product in order to increase the sales.
Increase the.
The sales, so they would have to invest into marketing and maybe train people from other departments to be also able to do marketing.
Right. So you're saying then, if I want to increase sales, I need to focus on the marketing department. So the question is then, how can I get marketing to be able to work to the level that they can, because 20% is a big increase. So what things would I look at then to get marketing to be able to increase sales by 20%?
Look at other niches, for example, other age groups where my product could be sold to.
So you can look at the PR and the promotion, advertising. What else from the age? Yes? Incentives to whom? Which workers though? Right. Our sales staff? Right, that's what Sachi was saying. If you're talking about advertising and PR,
You have to make sure you have the product in stock too.
you need to make, so you make,
Product in stock.
right, so you make, well, not ensure, you have to have more product. Because if you increase your sales by 20%, it means your production would have to increase commensurate with having output of 20% at least. You see? Right.
I just
So-
said that because I heard a story that they were about to do that, and when they checked, they didn't have the product. So I think
Right. But all part of it is that, but that's the strategic thing. If you want to increase sales by 20%, you need to make sure that your production department gets the signal you need to increase sales by 20%. But it raises an issue. If the production department also has to increase sales by 20%, what are the implications here? Right, can they do it with existing staff? Or can they get technology to help? And if they get technology, what are the implications of getting technology? Training and cost, but training. So even with the sales staff, they might need to be retrained. Right? Or, I thought it was exactly where it was going, that basically you might want to tweak your product and do something different with the product. But if you start to make changes to the product, what are the implications if you start making changes to the product? What are the implications for staff?
Might not be as familiar with it.
So it means you have to train. So the point I'm making here, a prerequisite to even achieving this goal, you have to do a needs assessment to find out if I ask my staff to increase sales by any amount, are they capable, competent, and have the resources to be able to achieve it? You can't assume that. Karina gathered with what you were saying. So the goal itself does nothing. It is how you bring the goal into action, or what we say you operationalize the goal. Right? So training, development, retraining are a number of things you might need to do to assist our employees to be able to achieve your new goals. And whenever you come with a goal, it's going to be something different. But if you don't retrain staff or retool them or get them, give them an incentive, what's in it for them to do anything differently? So all that's going to happen, you have grand goals, but you're likely to miss them. And that's the point they're making here, that linking it to the strategic purpose and focusing on the goals. And you have the mission, linking to the mission. That's what we're talking about, knowledge of the job. Do people know the tasks, the products? That's all the things we were talking about. So they need to upgrade skills and things like that. So all this is saying here, you might need to look back at your job descriptions. Because to achieve this new target, you might need to redefine people's roles, broaden the scope, multi-skill. Get staff from different departments to come retrain them to help you to achieve that goal. You have your job analysis, etc. So we have performance planning. And performance planning look at key accountabilities. It's looked at specific objectives and performance standards, right? So the key accountabilities is who is responsible for doing a job and who is accountable for doing tasks in particular ways. Then you have specific objectives for employees, and then you have performance standards. Why are performance standards important? Sorry? That's it. So, right? So you can set an objective, but if it doesn't have a standard, you might achieve the objective, but fall short of the standard. So the standards, so give me an example of a standard in any organization. And define.
For banking, for example, you may get a lot of sales and a lot of loans, but if they are back, if it turns to bad debt.
So what's the standard then?
High quality loans,
Right.
persons that really gonna repay.
And the high quality loan will determine the minimum requirements or your minimum criteria that you, if you are to get a loan of 10,000, your income must be X. If you get a loan of 40,000, your income must be X. And then you must bring minimum your job letter and proof, right, of earnings, right? A job letter that you work somewhere and proof of earnings. Those are minimum standards. Okay? And the standard is set to ensure that when you give loans, people don't default, which ends up with the bank having a loss as opposed to having a profit. Give me another organization where you might have different sets of standards. Manufacturing, yeah. Manufacturing, so if you're making a cup, there's some standards with the cup in terms of volume and safety. Is it made of any plastic that could be harmful to people's bodies? Right. Correct. Right, yes, right. So if people make batteries to standards, right, so the battery will be made to protect the standard that it does not leak or it does not explode. Right, so that's what we're talking about. Cars, similar thing, must be made to protect the standard. So when people are making cars, you've got to make sure they don't have faulty brakes. Right? They don't have faulty electrical power. So all those are standards. So every job has some minimum standards. What are some of the standards associated with, say, a receptionist who's just answering the phone? On 3 rings, at least 3 rings. Don't forget the first, the 3 rings.
Speaking proper English.
Correct. The language used.
Knowing about your organization.
Right. And then knowing the organization and tone of voice. You don't want to be crude or offensive, right? So all of these are standards that we are talking about. The things behind the scene that can take up a lot of time. So you see here the yardstick. How well employees have achieved their goals. And you talk about quality, that's what we're talking about a lot here. The quality, that things must be of a particular quality, or it could be just quantity. That you need to make X amount of numbers and timeliness. Right. So especially like in the medical practice, time is of essence. Why is time of such essence in the medical practice? You could lose life. Somebody can lose an arm. Somebody can get an asthmatic attack. As you say, people could die. And so seconds and minutes matter. So Yeah. So in a medical environment, timeliness is something that is extremely critical, you see. Is it critical in education? That your lecturers will come to classes early, right? What's that?
That's too much shade. That's too much shade. I wasn't ready.
I said they should come to class early. So we can move. So these are things that just look at the headings, and we won't go through all the detail. And then you have performance execution, the employee's responsibility. Because folks, the reality is, I tell people, a manager never made an organization successful on his or her own, ever.
No, sure.
Because especially when you have huge organizations that have thousands of staff, if your staff are not on board, you might have the most brilliant plans on paper, or managers of departments or supervisors never made an organization successful yet. They made it successful through the people they supervise, those in the front line of serving customers, you see. But we know we don't pay attention a lot to staff. So again, are people committed to achieving the goals? So if engagement, the fancy word today is engagement, the extent to which they are committed and they feel part of the organization, they want to give freely. So feedback. Do staff members get feedback and coaching is to help them to overcome challenges? Is there good communication between staff and the supervisor? And in many cases, a lot of supervisors do not communicate well. And if they communicate, it is harsh and just complaining negative. They focus a lot on the negative. When I was an HR practitioner, we used a phrase that said, you should catch workers doing things right. Normally, we catch workers doing things wrong, Lisa. But when you catch workers doing things right, it's like you consciously are looking for workers who have been, and every day there are workers who do things well. But we tend not to focus on, and really focusing on workers doing things well. The average manager or supervisor will speak to a worker when they realize something went wrong, but will hardly speak to them when something went right. So we say you need to really start to share the positives. And collecting and sharing performance data, this is where the performance management process clicks. And that, but this is one of the most critical parts of it, that one-on-one feedback, and you're monitoring performance and collecting data, right? You need to be able to collect data and share with the employee.
That's like observational coaching?
It could be observational too, right? Yeah. Or not only observational, it could be data, like in call centers. You know, they're recording, so you don't necessarily have to speak to the staff. You just get the technical people to run reports, and then you can actually be looking at data to determine, are they answering the phone correctly? And so data is, a lot of it is data driven. And then the performance review, you need to prepare for that performance review. So we're saying here that multiple assessments are necessary, right? Because the thing is, you want employees to take an ownership of it. So I know the traditional paradigm for performance appraisals, where you have the, the one-off employee appraisal, right? It is generally one way. That the manager calls the employee, and you indicate to them, I'm doing your appraisal, and this is how you performed, and if you have any problems, sign it. If you don't, you just sign, right? But it's normally a one-way, right? It's normally a one-way, and many employees do not get the opportunity to have a dialogue with the supervisors. But in modern performance management and the final appraisal, you really should give the employee the opportunity to take a sense of ownership that I'm part of this, and it's not the manager taking ownership to just give me the criticisms or just write on my form, but you need to be providing information and making me feel that I'm a critical part of it. So this is about the performance review. We will get into details of that in one of the other lectures, so I don't want to get too much into the performance review now. So then you have the performance renewal and recontracting, that it says at the end of the reporting period, you need to make a decision. Do I want to renew the contract? If it is on a contract, or do I want to separate? So the challenge would be obviously, because I believe in most public sectors across the world in the Caribbean, most of the workers will be what they call permanent. So when you have permanent workers, this renewing or recontracting is really not relevant because it will be very difficult, particularly in the public service, to really terminate public officers. So in the context of the Caribbean, I believe you will have enough such here in Germany, but you have the Public Services Commission. So if you want to get rid of a permanent appointed employee, it's not that easy. You got to person administration, and you got all of these reviews. So I know people that have gone on leave for 4, 5, and 6 years and got back their jobs. You know, they were sent on leave pending an investigation, and they're off the other half pay. And when they come back to work, they have to give them back all of their money. So I know a guy, there was a guy who had a legal problem, and charges were brought against him, and he was on leave with half pay for about 7 or so years. But in between that time, what happened? They dropped the charges. So when they dropped the charges, there was no case to bring about against him. So he had to get back pay for 7 years and return to work. And he was supervisory level, so he had to come back in at a supervisory level. Yeah. Charges. So a lot of workers I know happen in the public sector that you're on leave or half pay pending an investigation. In fact, by that time, the people who brought you retired and gone home, and do whatever years. Some people home 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, right? In fact, they told me somebody was telling me something last year. There was a case of a guy, I think entry level. I know one of the attendants or something. He had some problems at work. And he just went home. He was sick. Went home. And people forgot about him. He was home for years and being paid a full salary and did not come to work, and nobody did anything. They just forgot about him. He just wouldn't come to work. He and the boss had some problem, and he just stopped coming to work. But you know, nobody likes to bring action against anybody to lose their job. So he just went home and refused. He's not working with this person and would not come to work. And nobody brought action against him. That's it. And he was paid. That's it. So nobody wrote to say that he should not be paid, because nobody wanted to confront the situation. I tell you, this isn't rare to say yes. He was paid full pay and just refused to come to work over years. It happens. It happens a lot. So I say the renewal and recontracting in more the private sector where people are on a contract. Some people come in on a 1-year contract, 2-year contracts. I know the banks have a lot of those. Especially at managerial level now, it's becoming very popular across the world, even in the Caribbean, that a number of people, even in the public sector, like the statutory boards, people are being hired on 3-year, 4-year, 5-year contracts that have to be renewed. Right? So the private sector a lot would have those kind of short-term contracts. So renewal is important in those kind of contexts. So that's really performance management and feedback are important. What's the situation in Germany? A lot of short-term contracts.
Not in the public sector.
Right, people are permanent then, they have full-time jobs.
We have some, like say, normal employees who have kind of a permanent employment, but we also have this real government employees who have like a lifelong employment.
Right, lifelong, right. So most of our government workers will have that kind of lifelong employment.
And the private sector, I mean, I'm working at a bank as well, and we have a few like part-time workers or on a limited contract.
Right, yes.
For like a few years. I myself just have a 5-year contract during my education.
Right.
And then I will see which kind of job I want to have.
Okay. Yeah, but in the bank here we have a lot of that, where we have a lot of temporary and part-time workers in the front line. But strangely enough today, I didn't know we had a lot of money. I heard the Prime Minister saying that anybody who put in 3 years will be given permanent appointment. Wow.
Before
You don't believe it?
3 years.
Before me and 6.
But I thought you were going to.
Before election, you were marked 6.
But I thought the basis.
Was 5 years.
No, but I thought the basis release I thought the basis
But
for
what
permanent
years?
appointment. No.
Oh, sorry.
Folks, the basis for permanent appointment that the position's gonna be established.
Yeah.
Bless you.
You
Now, a
don't.
lot of
You
their
understand?
positions are
So,
not
so you
vacant.
don't. So you don't
Yeah,
say
that's
people
right.
in the system for 3 years and say, well, let's establish this position. You have to look at the structure. So you don't just.
You just don't do it like that.
If you have positions that are established and you are available, you are permanently
The average
appointed.
person would not know that. So when they hear that, he's giving them the opinion that it's false hope, but it cannot happen.
They will have to create positions.
Exactly.
But me can issue instructions to the
So
office
the
of public
service
sector
will
to
have
create.
Before election?
And it can't happen before primary.
No.
Can you, so that's just like a given?
It was a sports house in December 2016.
Yes, I remember them. If you do it,
But you know you're increasing the government's payroll again. Because the people know you tell you all the benefits and everything. So, so what you do, you're further expanding the payroll and expanding government
How
debt.
not to phone down.
No? Yeah, I don't understand, yeah. But the government cannot afford to pay its bills. So I don't understand where you appoint all of these employees permanently. Huh?
I feel he just said something like he can bring up him, but you say something because the action coming.
Well, they can be committed, remember they gotta do it.
The average person.
False hope.
Yes. But anybody that knows that is working for the service.
That it can't work, does it? Yeah. But I mean, you could try to rush it and get the Office of Public Sector to rush it. It's
And create
possible.
posts.
And create positions.
So you mark 6.
Well,
But it's a track exactly.
so some key points, folks, about the process. It's an ongoing process, right? And each component is important that you went through. And the links between the components must be clear. As I said, it's a whole integrated process. It's not a singular activity, particularly the strategic linkages, so that the link of training and retraining, gap analysis are all part of performance management, you see? Because performance management is literally that. How can I better manage the performance of my employees or the performances of my employees to ensure that we add value to the company being effective or the organization being achieving its goals, whether it is public sector, private sector, or even non-governmental, NGO. NGOs also have to monitor performance because in many cases, NGOs can get millions of dollars in grants. So you need to make sure that when people make you accountable, that you could argue, yes, we are not misusing your funds are being wisely used, you see? So even in an NGO, you still have to be accounting for the money that you're getting. So as I said, the key thing in summary would be the linkage to the company's strategy, the vision, mission, goals, and the linkage to HR strategy, because HR strategy allows the company to have a set of strategies that will translate from your goals and targets on paper into people knowing exactly what you are supposed to do to help the organization achieve these short and long-term objectives. I'm going to emphasize one of the critical things that we said is that it is your leaders, your managers, your senior managers, your middle managers and supervisors who really need to make sure that in a performance management system, the monitoring and feedback really pays dividends, would be of some benefit and ensures that you're able to feedback and coach workers to improve performance, right? That's the main thing you want to be able to achieve. And the final point would be, as I said, when it comes now to rewards and recognition, you cannot have a system in a performance management process where employees who perform good, employees who perform excellent, and employees who are not performing to the standard all are given the same rewards and the same benefits and the same remuneration. But unfortunately, we know that is what happens. Everybody, in particular in the public sector, gets the same thing. And the public sector generally doesn't pay, at least in the Caribbean, any bonuses. So the only other incentive you could get may be some kind of promotion. But I'm a very strong advocate that money is not the only reward or incentive that you could actually give people. You see. So you can use, kind of a cafeteria approach, as you said, that where increased vacation. If you don't have the money, somebody gets an additional 2 or 3 days and it adds up over time. You know, opportunity for training, okay, that you're saying then you don't have to give me a salary every month, but I'm doing the training course, so just support me 50% of my training, and you can pay that over time. Or reimbursement, when I finish my studies, you can reimburse me, you know, a percentage. So those will be kind of the incentives that that people can be given.
I'm thinking how to manage, both like a permanent employee and a contract worker with incentives, if there's like a parallel system.
Well,
You know, both for the
no,
same
but
system.
if you're a contract employee, there's no intention to keep you permanent. Right? That's what it's supposed to be, but you know,
But
so,
it's just rolling over.
but they shouldn't. You see, if you have a contract, if you have somebody who's on contract rolling over, you can better make them permanent. But a contract employee is intended that you're on a contract and you go and you can bring on somebody else. But if you have somebody who rolls over for 10 or 15 years, you know,
Not that long, but almost close to that.
right. But I'm saying, but if you have a contract worker, there's no intention for you. You're saying up front, we want the flexibility that we might not need you at their point. So the companies want flexibility. So contract workers should not enjoy the same benefits as full-time staff.
No,
Because you're contracted. But you're contracted, you
Because
see.
you
Yeah.
see, there's a parallel system as well.
Right, you see. But even with the heads, ladies, but even with the heads of statutory boards on contract, they have their own benefits, you know, so they don't have the same skills that you have in the public sector, you know, and so because they know they're on contract for 3 years, and at the end of that 3 years, then it might not be renewed. So you can't get the same benefits like pensionable rights and that. You won't get those kind of benefits, you see. So even study leave one thing, if you're on contract, you can't expect to get the same study leave as a permanent person. You need to make provision. But I think what people are doing is maybe distorting what this contract, ladies, we have 2 conversations going on. But what I'm saying that when you have the contract, when people are taking contracted employees and treating them as permanent employees, okay? So you create some problems, especially when you have them enjoying similar benefits, that you can go to court and argue, I'm really not a contracted employee, I'm permanent, and they actually would win the case. Okay? So you've got to be very careful how you treat an employee who's supposed to be on a particular short-term contract.